Cool. So hey everyone. So one of the big things I did as just mentioned, I did the Kickstart thing at the start of the year where we met directly with students, and it was a really interesting thing for me, especially to think about, because the majority of what we do day by day is not this. So my business is built off ad spend, return on investment, all of that kind of stuff for our clients. And so it came up a lot when talking with the students about what they could do to actually help themselves get ahead, aside from obviously being able to directly spend money, but what they could do that was free, what they could do that just took effort, that sort of thing to kind of get things going. So it was kind of fun to put this together for me, because it was sort of something I had to think a little bit outside the box with, and it sort of took me back to when things were starting out with Digital Simple, and I had no ad budget, and what I sort of did to help things kind of kick off with nothing really there. So some of the things that the market, obviously, especially online, changes a lot. So some of the things in here are what was used. Some of them are new opportunities I think have risen between now and then. But yeah, it's a small group, which is cool. So if you have any questions along the way, I think it's probably better if we address them there instead of saving them for the end. So feel free to just stick a hand up or do whatever, just to speak out, and yeah, we'll go from there. So the first question that I wanted to go over is social media. And so for starters, who here thinks that Facebook and Instagram are free? Yeah, is it free? Yeah. Just like, you don't need to think about it too hard. Like, would you approach it as being a free medium to use, or so? Yeah. So at an entry level point at this, right? Yeah. So anyone can start a business Facebook page. They can start putting posts up. They can start doing all of that sort of stuff without actually any expense associated with it. Truth is, in order to do anything that has any impact on those platforms, you have to spend money. So the way that I kind of separate it out now is the platforms that I really identify as being free are actually LinkedIn and TikTok. So I don't know if any of you are on either of those. You've probably heard of TikTok regardless. It's a pretty funny platform. Those are the only two spaces that I think, from a free perspective, you have a really good opportunity to actually get an enormous amount of reach today without spending any money. On Facebook, an interesting stat for you guys is your post will reach on average 6.4% of the people that like your page. So if you have a page that has 200 likes, that's going to average out at about 12 people that will see a post every time you put one up. And there can be quite a lot of effort that goes into putting a post. If you're doing it regularly, it can be quite time consuming. There are kids on TikTok in the States that put a video up and it reaches 5 million people. And that's with no expense, that's with nothing. So although you're still, with free advertising, you have a bit of a lack of control, you do have quite a higher chance of getting sort of lucky on these platforms. LinkedIn's a huge one. I'm going to touch a little bit on video later on, but there's a huge opportunity there on LinkedIn. And the way that platform works with the connections and how much they prioritize organic over paid there means that you have a really strong chance of sort of getting some traction there. And then we're also going to go through what you can do on Facebook and Instagram that is still free, that I think still has legs and a real potential for that to kind of be a positive thing for you guys. So that is the next slide. How do you use Facebook and Instagram? First one's Facebook Marketplace, which a lot of people will probably be sort of familiar with. So the reason Facebook Marketplace is a good place to go is you've sort of got to approach Facebook with what Facebook's interests are and make sure the way that you're advertising is aligning with that. So Facebook started Marketplace to compete with Amazon, your Trade Me's, your people like that do that sort of person-to-person selling. They're aiming to get as much attention as they possibly can. So they're trying to be dominant in that space. Because of that, if you're posting on Marketplace, it's got a much higher likelihood of reaching people, of getting out there, of that sort of thing, than it does actually just putting a post up on your page or something like that. It does have to be from a person. So it could be someone who's working in one of the organizations. It could be something like that, putting one of the products up. on an actual marketplace, making sure you've got good photos, a good description, things like that. That's a really good free place to put your product that has a chance of actually leading to some people seeing what you're doing, maybe wanting to purchase it, however that sort of works, but it will help you a lot with that awareness side of things. Groups are really big too. They probably tie in a little bit to the marketplace kind of things. I know a lot of them are like the buy-sell groups and things like that have quite strong audiences there. If you can have a presence in those, that's also free. And that's another way for you to sort of get out in front of people. You're kind of leveraging off the size of the group as opposed to maybe the following on your page or something like that. And that isn't something that costs either. And then the last one is IGTV, which is a new, well, not too new anymore, but a newer thing on Instagram, where Instagram is doing the same as what Marketplace is doing with Trade Me. It's going up against your YouTubes, things like that, where people watch sort of that medium to short level video. They're trying to take space up there. And so because of that, if you're producing video content and putting it there, it gets a big preference over normal posts, over things like that, against other things that are sort of jostling for that position in the newsfeed. So if you are going to use those two, those are probably the three strongest ways to use them. Obviously, consistency across the board is going to be the best way to get momentum there. But those are the three standouts for me. Videos, which we touched on with IGTV, this is probably what I did the most of. When I started, I really like videos. I'm really bad at doing them now. But when I first started out, it was at least one a day, normally two. I did that for about 2 months, especially on LinkedIn. Instagram had a bit of a stronger organic place 2.5 years ago as well. I really like punchy. And from all of the looking at analytics and stuff that I've done, sub 90 seconds, definitely under 45 to 30 if you can. You're better off getting about 1 point over a short period of time and doing 3 videos than you are doing one that gets across 3 points that's 90 seconds long. So making sure that it's to the point, it's impactful. I have a saying, which is that once you go 200% in a video, it still comes across like you're bored. So you've got to really have that energy and be quite pumped up when you do them, because I promise you, it's very hard to look over the top. And we have stuff all the time with clients that are sort of a little bit more monotone and flat. They shoot videos and it looks like they don't even want to be there. So you've got to really kind of get yourself excited for it. In terms of platforms, TikTok is all video. That's very short form. That's probably the most in terms of an opportunity there is. That's really cool, that space. You've got to be quite quirky and stuff to stand out, but that's a really strong opportunity. LinkedIn is huge. That's still with that organic side of things. It gives it a lot of potential for things to run. IGTV, as I mentioned before, even Facebook does have a big preference over video versus imagery with the newsfeed. But it depends on the engagement and things like that. There, it's still very much rolling the dice. I also don't use scripts. Is a big thing that I talk to people about. I think as soon as you can use bullet points, like guidance is definitely a really good idea. But I think if you're going to read directly off a piece of paper through a video, you're not going to be able to avoid sounding robotic, and it's going to be very kind of like stiff and not enjoyable to watch. So if you can do it off the cuff, if not, do just simple guidance, a few bullet points that kind of lead you into what you're kind of saying. Don't be scared of and anything that makes it seem more authentic is probably going to help it, not hinder it. So that's a big thing that we sort of push with that sort of stuff as well. And we do the same thing even with our paid ads and that sort of stuff. We try to avoid them being perfect if we can, because it tends to come across as being very inauthentic. PR is a really interesting one that was actually suggested for us to go over. It's one of our clients that we do a really good job of it, and they've got an in-house team that helps us with it. It's really just once you have a story, once something cool happens, making sure you're putting that out to people with an audience as much as you can. A big thing that I think covers this that is probably not what you'd think is the influencer sort of market on Instagram, where they have that following, they have that sort of thing. If they're interested in your product and they like your story, they can probably be a better source of somewhere to push that information out than maybe a small publication or something like that. But it's just consistency and perseverance is what will come through here, because it's probably going to be 50 no's to 1 yes. So it's making sure you're getting that story in front of as many people as you can, knowing most people aren't going to respond or they're going to say no, but it's all about finding that yes there, because that's something that will really help. Be creative with your platform. So thinking about Instagram and influencers as opposed to more traditional kind of publishers, that sort of stuff will be really important. And don't necessarily think like if you've got a product that's for dogs, for example, an influencer on Instagram that you'd use is one of those dog Instagram pages. Think about people who have aligning audiences as much as people who are directly what your product is, because that probably creates a better opportunity. It's going to stand out more if it's coming from someone who isn't exactly what you do, but instead has people that sort of share that same kind of thing. We're flying through it. Competitions. This is a little bit of fun. So if you go into your Google Chrome and type that in, I tried to make it as simple as possible. Or if you go onto Facebook and you search digital simple chatbots, there is like a dummy competition that I've set up just for this that you guys can kind of see, because it's really hard to explain without that. And so what it is it's incorporating Messenger. And so you guys feel free to do it now if you want to. I'm happy to kind of go through it with you. So probably the easiest is Facebook and search digital simple chatbots, and you'll see up the top there's a thing that says comment yes. Go on the draw. If you go onto that post and you comment yes, the Facebook will start sending you automated messages that opt you into the competition if you join a database. I won't bombard you or anything like that, but through that it allows you to use like a competition to actually create something that you can use to sell further down the track without having to spend any money. So once you see this sort of starting to roll out, you see the messages bouncing back and forwards, you can see how it sort of can become quite engaging. You can drive people through to a website. From there, similar to email marketing, once you've been opted in, you can actually send a message directly to them through Facebook Messenger. That can give them an option to buy from you. It can talk to them about a special. It can do anything like that to sort of help encourage an actual return of what you're doing. So that's a really clever way to kind of take people that are interested in a product, whatever it is. They're going to enter the competition if they like the idea of what you're doing, and then giving them an option to maybe buy at a discounted price or something like that further down the track. And that will sort of really help them to turn it into something. Instagram story competitions can be really cool as well. Instagram has a huge preference over the story placement, the same way as they have with IGTV. And so that's just sharing and reposting a competition to your story, really similar to those like, share, and tag and mate ones that everyone's probably sort of seen on Facebook. That has a really good ability to spread, a lot more so than say the Facebook ones do. You have to be quite creative with the way you use the images and things like that, because you really want it to fit the platform right, make sure it's portrait and that sort of thing. But yeah, that can be a really cool way to sort of get that kind of reach and the awareness and that sort of thing that you need when you're starting out without actually having to spend any money. And then face-to-face. And this was probably the biggest thing that I did at the start, just calling people, going out and talking to people, really kind of getting your product out and trying to take as much control of it as you possibly can. We just sped the phone up. I just went and met people, that sort of thing. That's kind of a big part of being able to grow. If your product can go in retail stores, there's nothing that's stopping you going around, especially to sort of like independent boutiques, things like that, going in, talking to them, asking if they'll put it on the counter, asking if they'll put it somewhere in the store. That sort of thing is going to play a huge role in getting you out there and that sort of thing as well. And I think that's pretty much it. So I like questions. If you have anything, I'd love to answer, go a little bit more in depth. I've kind of blasted through that, so I'm worried I haven't gone into enough detail or anything like that. But yeah, if there's anything that you have anything. Cool.
What's better value,
Instagram. Yeah.
How much money do you think would be needed for a small startup to make it impact?
I think you play the free game until you can consistently spend money there. The thing with spend, and it's the same with what's free as well, is it's over and over and over and over again. We'll always win over spikes and drops and spikes and drops. So if you are doing competitions, if you are doing things like that, there's no hard cost. Initially, while budgets are small, I'd say you're better off just investing in being able to give away product or being able to do things like that. I think that has a lot more potential to gain momentum. As a sort of guidance, I'd say like our entry point for clients is probably sort of around that $1,000 to $2,000 a month on direct ad spend. And so if you're not paying a company on top of that, that's sort of where you kind of want to be. But it is a pay-per-play medium now. It's the way that it's been set up. So it's just about leaning on what they're trying to grow, like those stories and that IGTV that will always allow you to get a little bit further without spending any money. Anything else? Yeah.
If I give you $100 to spend on marketing on social media, where would you put it?
I'd run a messenger competition like I just showed you guys, and I'd spend $100 boosting it. Right. Yeah. Just because of the ability to go back with those messages. I don't think it's really not something that's used widely, and it's definitely not something that people understand the power of yet as well. And the beauty of the first time you do one of those competitions is because everyone opts in. If you do another one, you have the ability to message all those people and say, hey, you entered our last competition. Sorry you didn't win, but we've just launched another one. And that then means that competition will take off straight away without any spend. So everyone kind of has the ability to kind of snowball and get bigger and bigger each time. At $100, that's exactly what I do. Yeah. Anything else? Cool. That was easy.
Well,
Sweet.
the thing that, I run a page where we try to promote. It's just to give an idea that the way Facebook promote it, boost this post.
Yeah.
And they show you how much it grows. But you're telling me that when I put down the post, you're only going to do
On average, 6.4%. Yeah, without spending money.
People who like it.
Yeah.
And then once you see, they sort of try and show you that it's growing a lot. But how realistic is that?
Look, the way that I tend to put it, and it's sort of, this is a bit contradictory to what I just said, but the way that I tend to put it is boosting posts helps Mark Zuckerberg, but doesn't help you. So it's basically the way that they use up unsought out space on Facebook. So if I'm running ads, we don't boost any posts, but the thing is we're expensive to use. So if I only had $100, I'd still boost a post because that's better than not doing anything. But it's just, let's say I'm doing advertising for a property developer. They have quite a specific person who they're looking to go after. It's someone who can buy a house. It's someone who's in this area. It's this, it's that. And then there's a bunch of other people that are also running ads, and we're all jostling for sort of the same kind of people. They're all people with money. They're all people with those sorts of things. There's people that fall outside of that category that no one's really trying to advertise to. If you're boosting, you're so unspecific around who you're trying to market to that it's quite likely it's going to go to those people because that's where there's the least competition. They need to sort of use up that unsought out space as well as they can. That's sort of what boosting posts is for. So it's although it's definitely, if you're at $100, it's definitely how I'd spend it because especially if you've got a cheap product or something like that, there's still a pretty good chance of it running. If you are boosting posts, that's sort of the like it's going to go there. Yeah.
So if I'm running a basketball competition and I know that all in the same thing, and you put the $100 to boost, and I put $200 to boost, am I more likely to hit my target market?
100%. Yeah, so it's very much like it's an auction is basically the main way. And so the way that we like spend per impression and that sort of stuff probably a lot higher than what a lot of people pay per impression on Facebook. But we're so specific around who we're trying to talk to that they're worth 10 times a normal impression to us. So it makes it really justifiable. So it's just sort of like using a shotgun versus a sniper, I suppose, if you will. And so if you're shooting at something from 200 meters away, you know what's more likely to hit it. It's just that's sort of the way to kind of think about it. But yeah, the bigger budgets will definitely help if your post is engaged with really well. So if it's getting a lot of comments and things like that, Facebook will perceive it as being quite a positive user experience. They're trying to bring user time up. So that will mean that you'll also get preference if it's sort of 50-50. All of those kind of things come into play. Cool. Great. Well, as up here, we're available. I quite like this YES stuff, and so we do have a bit of time if you guys have any questions, you want a hand setting anything up or whatever it is, we are seriously here to help. So all of this is up here. Feel free to reach out to me any way that works. You can message us through our Facebook page, email, phone call, text. Really easy. But yeah, thanks for having me. It was cool to come through. And yeah, let me know if you need anything. Cool. Sweet. Thank you. Cheers.